Welcome to Jesus Changes Everything, a daily podcast dedicated to providing a fresh look at the ancient and glorious truth that Jesus not only reigns, but is busy about the business of bringing all things under subjection, that celebrates the wonder and the glory that he has been given all authority in heaven and on earth. It's time for yet another one of our sacred marriage segments. And because of that, Lisa and I are here together to talk. And last time we were together, we did a segment that we call In Sickness and in Health. Mm-hmm. This time we're going to go a little bit further into those marriage vows, talking about for richer or for poorer. Mm-hmm. And I think there's going to be some commonality to these themes, because in both instances, and I think, again, this is the point, you got to be ready for anything, and you got to stick together through anything. I think I've told you this story before, but I think it's apropos here. The very first couple that I married had kind of an unusual backstory. He had, the husband had spent some time in a mental institution. Okay. And struggled growing up. And when he was released from this mental institution, he ended up living in a homeless shelter. Mm. And the wife, her mother, ran the store that sold used goods like Goodwill does to support the rescue mission. Okay. And homeschooled, and so the daughter was there with her at the store regularly, and that's how the two came together. Okay. So you got a client at the rescue mission, and the daughter of the girl who runs the rescue mission thrift store coming together, and as you might expect, both of them very excited about the ministry of rescue missions, looking at their God's providence and bringing them together as connected to that. So I'm going to marry this couple, and they come to me for their premarital counseling, and they start off by telling this story, which I already knew, but talk about how their wedding bands are going to be these special wedding bands with a special logo for the National Association of Rescue Missions or something like that. Okay. And they're going to go into rescue mission work together, and yet rescue mission. And I listened patiently, and I don't have much, I've got zero experience in doing premarital counseling, but I did know, this doesn't sound good. Okay. So I said to them, look, I appreciate your gratitude for where God's taken you, how God's used this institution, and your desires and your goals. But I need you to understand something. You are marrying her. You are marrying him. You're not getting on the same ride together. Mm-hmm. Okay? And you think you know where it's going. You're not marrying rescue missions. You're not, and so you need to make sure you understand that. Now, in God's providence, two things have happened. One, the couple's still together 20 years later and happy, and raised wonderful kids, and great couple. So I'm really happy about that. But secondly, they never spent a moment in a rescue mission.
It's interesting.
Yes. Okay. Which, again, would have been fine if they had, but the point is, they were looking at where they were going, and what the plan was.
Right. God had a different plan.
And God had a different plan, and his plan for the marriage is, it's you two. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be you two wherever I lead you. Mm-hmm. I want, and you would want, we both want a spouse who's willing to say, you know what, I don't know what the plan is, but if you're going to be with me, I'm going to do it. And in fact, sweetheart, this is not the plan, was it, for us to be here? But here we are, and it's okay. It's better than okay, because what matters is that I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. It's more than okay.
Yes.
Because I don't have to live in the heat.
Yeah, we got that going for us, too.
We do have heat here, but...
Yeah, but not so bad.
Yeah.
There's lots of blessings that come with where we are.
Yeah.
But the big one is that I'm with you. And I think we see, if I can tie together an earlier segment, we talked during our Curating Your Movie Library segment about this show, Victoria. And if you remember, because of the weirdness of the different kind of roles, she's queen, but he's the man, that one, she had to propose to him, and two, his response was conditional with respect to his financial situation. And her perspective is, why in the world would you ever have to worry about that? I'm the doggone Queen of England. I've got no financial limits.
He needed his pride.
Right, but he needed it, which is, again, understandable.
Yeah.
It reminded me of, again, something that I've said on here before. Our prenuptial agreement. You remember what that was? We came in, we're adults, we've been married, we have assets, and the agreement was, with all my earthly goods I thee endow.
Yeah. All I have is yours.
Yes.
All I have is yours.
Exactly right. Yeah, there's no mine and yours and ours. It's just ours. And I think that's part of what's supposed to be said here. I mean, I think there's something, not only is the vow for richer or poorer something that is a hedge against us breaking the vow if things go badly, but it's also, it reveals something about the nature of the relationship.
Yeah. That
we are one. You've been in situations, I know lots of people have been in situations like this, where two people come together and they keep their money separate.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, how in the world
well,
can
that's
you do
not
that?
A marriage. That's
right.
Yeah, that's controlling. But dear, I just want to say, like, even right now in this pandemic, where there's been so much job loss, there's been unemployment rising, there's been sicknesses. This has been a very trying time.
Right.
Some marriages, they might be older like you and I and have no longevity. They're just beginning their journey. They might be young marrieds. And I think that the opportunity is there, that your marriage isn't based on your pocketbook.
Right.
Your marriage is based on your commitment before God.
Yes.
And you are that three-cord strand that's not easily broken. And I really believe that no matter anything, even like anything that we have faced or that other couples have faced, when money is detracted, it's only God's providence saying, your source is in me. It is not in the job. It is not in the bank account. It is not in a weekly check. It is in me. And I am the one who owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. I am the one that's going to provide for you. And it literally just completely shifts, and we pivot and say, God, all we have is you. You are our very breath. And there's nothing more glorious, which might seem so frightening to a couple, but yet it is the most glorious, cementing thing in a marriage, to bring both of you to that place before the cross where your knees are bowed and you are completely submerged, knowing it is only God that will bring you through. There is no greater experience a marriage can have than those times. And riding a boat, living in a castle, traveling the world, that's all fun, that's really good. But you're only really going to know how strong you are when you are pressed and crushed. And that's what happens to a pocketbook in the middle of a pandemic, or if somebody loses their job, or what have you. And it's that pressing and crushing that we want. We want to be sweet wine before the Lord.
Sweetheart, I'm sorry for our audience's sake that I've got too much dead air here. I'm talking too slow, but you are absolutely touching my heart with what you're saying. Sweetheart, you are such a gift to me.
You are a gift to me, baby.
Well, we are a gift to each other, and it is because we are in God's good hands, and we are safe, and we are secure. And that's like I said, it's not just, it's sort of like the point of the tithe is not to finance what God needs done.
Right.
The point of the tithe is for us to learn, Lord, you've got this. I don't need this.
It's
because I
honoring
trust
God
you.
with the
Yes.
tenth of everything you have.
Yes.
Even when it hurts.
Yes.
Because God will still multiply. He keeps the lights going. He keeps breath in our lungs.
Amen.
We are so privileged to serve God.
Yes.
You know that?
Yeah, we have a faithful, loving Father who provides for us, who takes care of us.
Yeah.
And again, does it for us. And so just like with in sickness and in health, this vow, like everything else God asks of us, it's an invitation to joy. That if you take the position, I will only be happy or I will only stay in this marriage if my standard of living is above this line, you're not going to be happy and you're not going to stay in the marriage.
Right.
If you say to your loving Father, whatever you have for me, Lord, whatever you have planned, I trust you, and I'm sticking with you, and by your grace, I'm keeping my vows, then it's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's freeing. When God this is something I learned from you, the language, and it means so much to me. And you've said it about a lot of things that I have lost. That things that mattered so much to me that I've lost, you've described it as God removing idols from my life. And Lord knows people can have money as an idol in their life, or status, or privilege, all of which can come with money. And
Which is what we were referring to.
Yeah.
In your loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to God for Him getting my eyes off of those things and teaching me. I still have lots to learn, but teaching me to find my joy and my completeness in Him.
Amen.
When He takes an idol out of your hand may hurt briefly, but all of a sudden you're going to find out it's healed because
it didn't belong there.
Yes.
And now it's whole.
Yes.
Every little fragment that God crushes, He does for a reason, and it's to make something beautiful.
And He does.
Amen.
Absolutely. Well, sweetheart, I am once again so very grateful for you. I'm grateful for you, dear, on this podcast, but I'm grateful for you 24/7.
And you.
I love you, sweetheart.
And I love you.
We come now in our ongoing series, The Bible in 5 Minutes. And by the way, I typically take a little bit more than 5 minutes, but the Bible in 6 minutes doesn't have much of a ring to it. To our Bible in 5 Minutes segment, and today we're looking at the book of Acts, which is one of my favorite New Testament books, in part because it is, it is I think, a very nice combination of didactic teaching and history. It is written, of course, by Luke, the same fellow who wrote the Gospel of Luke, who was not only a medical doctor, but was perhaps the premier historian of his day, recognized as such. And it is the ongoing history. It's called the Acts of the Apostles, but I kind of like the idea that it's the Acts of Jesus. The great Puritan writer, theologian, pastor Cotton Mather wrote the first history of America. It was called Magnalia Christi Americana. Magnalia Christi Americana, which means the great works of Christ in America. Well, even though Jesus ascends to the right hand of the Father at the beginning of the book of Acts, I would argue that the book of Acts is the history of the great works of Christ in the first century. That this is a book about his conquest, which brings us to another point. one of the ways that you might frame this book is on the basis of the Great Commission. That is, Jesus tells the disciples that they are to be his witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the outermost parts of the world. Those are sort of concentric circles getting wider and wider and wider. And what we watch as we follow the accounts of the apostles is precisely that. Pentecost happens in Jerusalem. They go from there out into Judea. The gospel then goes into Samaria. Then it goes into the Gentiles. It's spreading further and further and further, which brings us to what I think is the neatest thing, and maybe it's because I have something of a literary background, but it is my contention that one can see without squinting a clear connection between the framework of the book of Joshua and the book of Acts. That just as Joshua is the story of the conquest of Canaan by God's people after the original leader, Moses, has passed, in a manner of speaking. So now the church, after Jesus has ascended, is about the business of conquering not just the promised land, but the whole of the world. Joshua, of course, as under God's command, went and conquered with the sword. But in the New Covenant context, this conquest comes through the preaching of God's word. I encourage you, if you look through the book of Acts, or the other way around, if you look through the book of Joshua, that you keep in mind that idea, and you will see, they'll sort of jump out at you. You'll see some of the parallels. Here's one more, just in case you don't believe me yet. There's a definite parallel between what happens at the Battle of Ai and why things happen at the Battle of Ai. With Achan having taken of the cursed things, and the story of, oh gosh, I always get them confused with Priscilla and Aquila, or Nadab and Abihu, the couple that sold their land and then lied about how much of it they were bringing back. It's very much a similar kind of story where judgment is brought in. And in fact, we're told after these two are killed that fear came upon God's people. And that's in a positive way. So what we have in the book of Acts is, again, this conquest, this great victory. This is, Jesus has left, and we maybe are tempted to think, oh, this is not good, this is sad, this is a step backwards. And yet Jesus says when he goes, when I go, I'm going to send you the helper. And so it's the power of the Spirit of God at work, manifesting the glory of God. And of course, there's just so many wonderful events and stories. Peter seeing the sheet covered with unclean animals and being told to eat. I mean, that's a great event when we're given liberty to eat bacon and shrimp wrapped in bacon. That's a very positive thing. And of course, Paul's encounter on the road to Damascus. Just so many. Even the Jerusalem Council dealing with the struggle that was so central to the New Testament church. How are we to sort of integrate the Gentiles into this world? It's just a rich and full book. And I commend it to you. I hope you'll give it a good, strong read, invest some time and energy in it, and I think you'll find it profoundly rewarding.
You've been listening to the Jesus Changes Everything podcast, a production of Dunamis Fellowship, the teaching outreach of Dr. R.C. Sproul Jr. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we encourage you to subscribe, which you can do at all the usual outlets, to tell your friends, and to spread the word. To learn more about the work of Dunamis Fellowship, please visit rcsproulJR.com. And join us next time on Jesus Changes Everything.